Where did the Seminole nation come from? What's the origins of the words Geechee and Gullah? Okay, the Seminole nation came into existence through the resistance to the policies of the European colonists. Just like certain West Africans and certain Indians. Just like certain West African tribes, you had certain Indians called Geechee Muscodian type of Indians. So the Geechee Muscodian Indians, they greeted the Europeans with open arms, and this proved to be their downfall. So the Europeans strategized and provoked the tribes or clans to attack one another, as well as introducing epidemic diseases like smallpox. In less than 17 years, a group of Indians called the Geechee were totally wiped out. No, not totally, but almost. Geechee is a town or sub-tribe or the Geechee Indians, the Geechee, by the lower Geechee River in Georgia. And you know, this Geechee River is by Savannah, Georgia, on the coast. So, the Creek and other Indians made war on the Geechee tribe. So the Creek and other tribes made war on the Geechee tribe. And according to Bartran, they were finally exterminated by the Creeps and Carolina settlers. You know, these settlers, these are Europeans. Also on the Amina Island of Florida, where they have taken shelter, refugees or shelter after being driven from their main land. Okay, the Creeps, they are a warlike, powerful tribe. They send their deputies to Charleston, since the English people, which is Europeans, were finally establishing that settlement. So the Creeks offered their friendship to the English and became allies with them and made a treaty with them that was never violated to this day. The Creek never stopped warring with the bands of Indians, such as the Savannah Indians, Geechee Indians, the Wapu Indians, the Santee Indians, the Yamasee Indians, the Utina Indians, and so forth, and other Indians. So the Creeks were just going to war with English, with the Europeans against other Indians. So these Indians, the Yamasees and the Geechees, they surrounded and cramped the English. They surrounded the English plantation, and until the Creek ain't stopped warring with them until they was almost exterminated completely. So they kept on warring with these Indians. The Creeks kept warring with the Indians because they was already allies with English. So they warring against the Yamasees and the Geechees and the Wapus, because many Indians came together who surrounded the English plantation in Charleston. So the Yamasees and their adherents sheltered themselves under the power and protection of the Spaniards. So they went to east of Florida. So like St. Augustine, Florida, like that, over there, that area. Go up a little bit, you got Jacksonville, Florida. So the Spaniard refused to give up the Yamasees and bands of Indians, being faithful to them. And they made war against the Creeks until the Creeks broke up and the Creek settlement was ruined. And the Creeks retired within the walls of St. Augustine. So they found their little place in St. Augustine. So around 1750, they already broke up, they already separated. A Creek Indian chief called Sir Coffee, or the Cow Keeper. He led the remainder of what was called the Geechee tribe in present-day southeast Georgia, the Savannah area, also northeast Florida, like Jacksonville, St. Augustine area. He led that area. So the Gullah, who freed themselves from slavery in Georgia, combined with this group that the Cow Keeper or the Creek Indian chief was over. So it was the Creek Indian chief, which is the Cow Keeper, and the Geechee tribe So as well as other Southeastern Indians came together to form what is evolved into the Seminole Nation. This is how you got the Seminole Nation. It's evolved from St. Augustine, the Yamasees and all of them, the Geechees from Savannah, Georgia area, and Brunswick, all the other areas, and they're chasing like the Yamasees, the Creek, and then when they were chasing the Yamasees and the Spaniard were supposed to be protecting the Geechees, the Yamasees, Indians, and they kind of like, well, they separate the Creek. They separate the Creek Indians. And so this is how they came about, because of the Creek Chief Indian, which is Cow Keeper. He hooked up with the Geechees and other Indians, and just formed the Seminole Nation. Well, basically, it was the Gullahs and the Indians connection. And so in 1749, the American came with a law to legalize slavery, and the trustees of Georgia passed a law in the same year of 1749, authorizing the enslavement of black people. And so you got to understand, when all this was happening with the Creeks was like 1750, or maybe the same year of 1749, but they done formed them already a Gullah tribe, which is the Seminole Nation, runaway slaves and Indians connection. But Gullah means Africans specifically, but Seminole means runaway. Don't matter what color. When they add black to it, it's African. So the public understanding that the Underground Railroad taking enslaved Africans north to Canada, because you remember the Underground Railroad, it took slaves up north all the way to Canada. Now, at the meantime, you still had some slaves down south waging war and fight against the system of slavery. Many Gullahs in Savannah, Augusta, and Brunswick fled from slavery. Yeah, they escaped slavery either individually or in pairs or in larger groups. And other Gullahs from Albany, Georgia, and elsewhere later joined together with the fleeing Gullahs from Savannah, Augusta, Brunswick, and other areas to live as Maroons. Africans who freed themselves in locations within. And this is like 1749, you got to understand. So around and below, the location was around the Opofanoke Swamp, which extends from the southeast Georgia, that's Savannah area, 912 area, which Brunswick, Riceboro, Darien, all that there, to northeast Florida, St. Augustine, Jacksonville, all that there. So many Gullahs aligned it with the Indians with fighting arms. They were armed, and so they're fighting guerrilla warfare against the slave owners. So they were steady migrating, the migration of the Gullah from Georgia to a variety of many points down south, many areas down south and elsewhere. It lasted from 1700s now until the emancipation when they got freed, which took place in the mid 1860s. So the Indians were allies of the Gullahs. Yeah, the Indians was allies of the Gullahs. And how the name Geechee came about, according to this source of this book called The Invisible War that I'm reading, called The Invisible Wars. You can buy this book on Amazon. So the Indian allies, they were allies of the Gullahs, and they call all of the Gullahs Geechee. And this is, I'm sure to tell you why. It's because they want to distinguish the Gullahs who fought aside them for hundreds of years. So they were like a war name, like a warrior name, Geechee. Also for the Savannah area, all Savannah area, Brunswick area, coastal Georgia area, This include Brunswick and everything else. In the honor of the Geechee clan who were exterminated, who were destroyed by the treacherous European colonialism. This according to this book. Now, as we read on, we're going to get more into the Geechee word. The Gullah speaking Geechee Maroons. Maroons means Africans who free themselves. Maroon also like a color like maroon brown. Brown is like dark brown. You know what I'm saying? And that's really our color. This is really who we are. It makes you think of the word Moors, the Moors, Mali, all that. The Mendanka, Mende, all which is part of the Gullah Geechee, that I mean area. So as I continue to speak, so the Gullah speaking Geechee Maroons, along with the Indian allies, participated in the Seminole Wars, which is the Gullah Wars. So this war was long and costly. They lost like millions and millions of dollars. The Geechees played the decision-making roles. They played the decision-making roles, not only as warriors, but also as strategizers, also as advisors, also as spies, and those who interpret. So they interpret language. So they was interpreters. So some Geechees were chiefs, and they were leaders. They were captains of their own warriors, but also vice versa. Some was warriors under the Indian chiefs. Still, the question is, where did the word Gullah and Geechee come from? According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the term Gullah first appeared in the English written literature in May the 12th, 1739. And this is part of the South Carolina Gazer. So this is what it says. Run away, a short, well-set Negro man named Gullah Harry. Run away, a short, well-set Negro man named Gullah Harry. So the Oxford English Dictionary defines Gullahs as follow. So the U.S. also Gullah, G-O-L-L-A, also spelled G-O-O-L-A-H, also G-O-L-A, which means it's short of the word Angola. So the word is a Liberian group, and over there in the country of Liberia, West Africa. You know, Liberia always means free. So Liberia also got a tribe that's known as Gullahs, G-O-L-A. For plural, put the S on there. So this means to designate Negroes living. This also means the designated Negroes who were living on the sea islands and the tidewater coastline of what? South Carolina and what? Georgia. So the sea islands is on the coastline of Georgia and South Carolina, and this is a dialect that is spoken by them. Okay, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the term Geechee first appeared in the written English literature in September 1929 in the issue of the National Geographic in the following matter. Among the niggers living on the Geechee, a patois, which means piggin, like a piggin language, developed in before the war days, which called the Annabella days, has persisted. Which means it's still persisted. It never stopped. It's kind of weird, but it was impressive as a stranger, but as a new language. So the origins of Geechee as the patois, which means Creole also, is called it, explained by the facts that enslaved Africans employed on the old rice plantations were more or less isolated and rarely talk or conversate with their white slave owners, with results that their knowledge of English words was slight pronunciation of them words was bizarre. I mean, worse. The way the Gullah or the Geechee people speak, it was worse. So what happened is they created a language because the slave owners ain't mess with the Africans on the island that much. Like, you know, Savannah Earl, Charleston, Beaufort Island, Hilton Head Island, Tybee Island, all these different islands, you know, Sapelo Island, John Island, James Island. they ain't mess with these Africans so much, so they created their own lingo because it's hard to really speak English anyway. So they created their own lingo, and slave owners didn't know what they was talking about. They did it out the English language. So, because it's the way we say it, it's kind of hard. It's the dialect of it, you know what I'm saying? The tone of it. For us, it's hard. It's just like for me to pronounce certain words that's English, even to this day. So they speak kind of bizarre, like worse English, not proper. So the Geechee Negro speaks in sort of a, pigging, but also they seem excited when talking. You know, I sound very hyper excited. That's how a lot of Savannah area people talk, especially those who like street people. They talk kind of very excited, very crunk, like. But you can sometimes misunderstand what they're saying. They talk so fast, be like, "What you said?" But they don't speak the full words. You know, some create slangs because they can't really say the whole word because it's hard to say, so they get caught. Some like sort of like tongue-tied a little bit. So, okay, the pigging is encountered all along the Georgia coast. The patois language, which means pigging. So the Oxford English Dictionary offers the definition of the term Geechee. It's the U.S. dialect, which is also the name of the Geechee River in Georgia. You know, Geechee River also Savannah, going up, I think, to Augusta. So Lorenzo Dow Turner in 1949, his book says, he got a book called Africanisms in the Gullah dialect. And he wrote the term Geechee, which he says probably African in origins. Turner said, responding to a question about the word Geechee to somebody, he said, many think that the designation comes from the Geechee River. I think this name is an Indian word, but there is an African tribe that's called Geechee in Libya, Africa. And I have found a great many words from that area in Libya, Africa. That's West Africa. In this region, Georgia, in the United States. In Georgia, in the United States. Oh, know what I mean? Also, they Geechee, speak Geechee. I first heard the term Geechee when I was locked up. I didn't know I was Geechee. Somebody told me, you Geechee, ain't it? You Geechee, ain't it? I ain't know what Geechee mean. They say, because I could tell you from Savannah because the way you speak. Now, I suspect, Dow Turner says, Lorenzo Dow Turner says, I suspect that it is the name of this African tribe in Libya that has carried over, to the United States. Geechee. So, but he also says Geechee and Gullah is one and the same. Gullah for Angola, Congo people. And then you have spelled Gula, but also Gullah in the Americas, which we call Gullah. So this is an ethnic group in western and northwestern Libya and eastern Sierra Leone. So we talking the Mende tribe, the Temne tribe. We talking about all these different tribes from Africa, even those from Congo created the Gullah language. So many African tribes created this language from Yoruba, Mende, Mendenka, who created this tribe, the Kissy tribe. So, but which I don't know is that in 1820 to the 1827, y'all heard of New Georgia in Libya? Yeah, they got a New Georgia in Libya. Why? And this is a town called New Georgia, and it's because the first settled by Africans who have been taken from the Antelope slave ship, which was seized and wrecked in Florida in the United States. So after they seized that ship, right, what happened is after they seized the ship, they sent all the people, over 100-something people in Georgia, probably Savannah area, for court, somewhere in Georgia for court, wait for court. So to settle their fate, to see what they're going to do with these people. So who's from Libya. So now they decided to send them back on the ship. This was called Northport. like Norfolk, Virginia, Norfolk. And this carried over 100 something of these Africans back to Liberia. That I mean, and some were Congo people, some were Ibu people, some were other tribes, probably Mende. But these people were also settled. They settled in the new colony of New Georgia in Liberia. So Geechee is also called Geechee in Sierra Leone and Liberia. Geechee, G-I-Z-I, also G-I-D-Z-I, but Geechee is also Kissy, K-I-S-S-I. So Geechee is also that. So now you got an idea. The Indians called it, the Africans fought alongside of them, Geechee. Is it because they knew that these people is the Geechee tribe in Liberia or Sierra Leone? Is it because the Africans consider themselves Geechee? So there's a lot of questions to ask. But now you know how this was formed. It's between the Indians, but also they got tribes in Africa called Geechee, and Gullah, like Gullah for Gullah. We can say it comes from many places. But to get understanding of it, now you know it's African. You just know it's African. That's what you know. It's African. No matter if the Indians give us that name, no matter if it comes from Africa, we just know these Africans. They talking about people who are fighting in the Gullah wars and all that there. So now you understand. You know what I mean? So this is very amazing. And this comes from the book called The Visible War. Very powerful book. You know what I mean? Yeah, so 1820, they waited a while to 1827, and they sent them right back across seas to Liberia. So this is very interesting. With that being said, it's I Can't Lit who bring you this light. I'm a Gullah Geechee in my blood from Savannah, Georgia area. And this definitely would it be. Ashe.